On this episode of Athletic Training Chat, we have Rachel Deal, who is an athletic trainer who currently works in an orthopedic setting but has done quite a bit in her career. What we're here to talk about today is Rachel's new initiative called Your Very Own Athletic Trainer, and we get into the details about what that is, why it got started, and why it could be really beneficial to a lot of parents or even in the future athletic trainers working in per diem or club settings, and really just providing good and solid information for these individuals to pass along when you're not there to be their very own athletic trainer. So we get into the details of that. Highly recommend you check that out, as she's done a great job getting it started. As always, we are powered by Mueller Sports Medicine. We thank them for helping us out with everything that they do. And I also want to thank you, the listeners. Because of your listening, we were able to generate enough funds to get 2 Mueller recovery tubs out to a small college and a high school, one in Pennsylvania, one in California, to get them a recovery tub for exertional heat-related stuff and also just for recovery. They've been using it for everything, so we want to thank you for that. Check out our social media for some of those pictures. But without further ado, please enjoy this episode. Welcome to this episode of Athletic Training Chat. Today we're on with Rachel Deal talking about your very own athletic trainer. Very briefly met Rachel at NATA. It was kind of in a busy, crazy time, but she swung by the Mueller booth while we were kind of finishing up / sort of doing the live podcast, but ultimately got her hooked up with a copy of the Athletic Training Daily Journal. She had referenced about starting up a project and really going all in on it, getting great feedback from people at NATA about it being an important tool. And so now, more months and time than I want to admit is good, past them, we're finally connecting to really dig into what it is, and we'll cover all of that. But first, just want to turn it over to you to kind of fill in everything you'd like to on your background, and then we'll get into it.
Okay. I graduated from the undergrad program at the University of Evansville in 2003, and then I went to grad school at Florida and got my master's degree, and graduated there in 2005. From there, I went to Mercer University in Macon, Georgia, where I spent 2 years and worked primarily volleyball and baseball. From there, I moved to Central Pennsylvania and worked at Bucknell University, primarily women's basketball. I had some other sport assignments as well. And then I moved home in 2010 back to Indianapolis and started working at an orthopedic clinic with the orthopedic surgeons. And initially I worked with our concussion program and had done some outreach. And so I knew that we were kind of getting to the end of what I could do and continue to grow. And so something just dawned on me one day and I was like, why don't I try my own thing and see what happens? So here we are.
That aspect of it rings so true, because now I'm in a similar kind of place, working with a surgeon, and it's just kind of like, what else could I do here? And there's just not a lot of other opportunities. So I completely understand that. And maybe we'll have a follow-up question on that here in a little bit.
Yeah.
I guess that maybe is kind of the first question, as you kind of just alluded to, is, what inspired the creation of your very own athletic trainer / what is it?
So my neighbor is a high-level softball player. She is verbally committed to go high-level D1. She's like the #1 catcher in her class. And, she'd get banged up here and there. And her mom would be like, hey, can you look at this? Can you look at that? And I'm like, yeah, sure. And one day, it was actually around Christmas last year, she was like, hey, it's like I have my very own athletic trainer. And I was like, hey, I wonder what I can do with this. And I really had no idea what what I could do with it or where to go from it. And so, but I realized after I looked online that there's not any information out there for parents strictly about youth injuries that is good. Like if you Google stuff, a lot of what I see is like not what we practice or not what's done in the office. And I'm like, there's just such bad information out there. Let's get some information for parents that's good.
Sure.
So I had already started a business before and I was like, well, let's see what I can do with this.
So what has been the focus so far? Because again, you mentioned just 9-ish months or so, kind of into this. What got you started? Kind of what offerings? Just kind of the whole synopsis of it, if you
Yeah,
will.
so I had started a business before, and I kind of used that as a an outline of what I wanted to do. So I knew I wanted there to be a website because people Google things, and so the
Oh,
more Google likes your website, the more people can find it. And so I already knew all the little tactics behind making a website successful, SEO and photos and keywords and all of that kind of stuff. And so I kind of sat down and came up with ideas of things that I thought were important for parents to know and kind of started the website based on that. Right now, it's just strictly educational. So there's videos, there's posts, there'll be more social media, but there's a lot of graphics, things that are easy to read. And really, it's focused towards parents of youth. So kind of that first grade-ish up until the end of high school. So things on injuries, how to prevent them, what are they, how they're treated, the difference between different kinds of injuries, like why you would do surgery for an ACL and not a PCL, things like that.
sure.
Things that are important that parents don't realize, like emergency action plans. Does your league have a lightning plan? Things that otherwise athletic trainers would do at facilities or for teams to make sure parents are aware that those things are needed.
I just can already think back to just my work in our own ortho clinic. That the questions you get that to you is just like we forget that because we're surrounded by it all the time. It is just second nature, and that does not compute out into the realm, across a bunch of different things. I think the ACL, PCL examples is a great one. And one we
Yeah.
run into a lot is the patient will read their MRI report and read impaction fracture from like an ACL, when truly, yes, by definition, yes, but
Yeah.
it's more of just that bony contusion that always occurs. And so you almost get this like sigh of relief to a degree because they still have a torn ACL of that, like there's not just another thing that's added on to that.
Yeah. And things like fifth metatarsal fractures. You have three different things, and parents don't understand the difference between all three. And some of them you have to have surgery, or you're
Yep.
just not going to get over. And it's like some things, yeah, you can just wait and see, or some things you have to treat. And it's breaking it down for a parent and being like, no, really, this is the best way that this is handled. So
What have you found? This is kind of off question, and not one that we had, but found so far to be effective in that communication. From the educational side, is it the videos? Does it seem to be the blog post that's a little more in depth? Is anything kind of standing out yet?
I think it's actually the graphics because
Okay,
they're easy. The videos are easier as an explanation, like it's for me to show,
sure.
like the stretching and the taping and that kind of stuff. But I think that the simple graphics, because I post regularly, and so they're easy to remember. So I had actually a parent that I know said, hey, my son plays at the junior high level and they don't have athletic trainer at the junior high. They do for the high school. And so I asked the AD if they have emergency action plans if something were to happen during a game, and they do. And I'm like, great, like you're actually doing what I'm saying and not
Right.
saying. So, but I think it was the graphics and the constant like just reminder, a few times a week that hey, this is what you should be looking out for. So I guess it's resonating.
That's always a good thing.
Yeah.
Any specific aspect that you see, from the emergency action plan to just the injuries, any specific topic, I guess, that has been the most.
It I think it was the lightning. I don't think that that's something that people in their day to day really think much of, and
Sure.
so when they're like, as the parent, then when you're out in a facility that you don't know, it's like, yeah, what should we do to protect ourselves when we're out here? You just don't think about it. And when you're at home, it's like, oh yeah, you just go inside. But when you're out in an unfamiliar place, you don't know what you're supposed to do in an emergency. And strangely enough, that parent and I were both at an event that had a weather catastrophe, as in people died.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, it was about 12 years ago at our state fair. We had a storm come through, and it knocked down a stage that was going on during a concert. And I think 3 people died, and like 10 to 15 people were like severely injured. And there was no plan. We were in the uh, bleachers, the seating,
Hmm.
when it's just storm blew right through. We had no warning. You couldn't see it. Nobody who came out and said, hey, clear the area. And this big gust of wind came, knocked the supports, stage fell. So yeah, that could be part of the
Wow.
reason that's important to her. I didn't think about
Sure,
that.
sure. So unfortunately, those are the things that seem to be what triggers a lot of response, and hopefully that continues to help improve the overall system.
Yeah, absolutely.
What have you learned so far in just the short time that it's been up? You mentioned the graphics being some of the most effective, but anything other major takeaways really that you found, and even because you're directly communicating with parents, but it's not again like you're the AT at a high school that's talking, to the students and the parents on a daily basis. You're trying to connect on a completely different level. But have you found any lessons that you've kind of picked up so far that maybe those people in those other positions could utilize?
Um, I think that trying to remain kind of clear and broken down on things and keep them as simple as possible. I've had some questions on things and realized that what I said didn't resonate.
Sure.
I had somebody ask me for materials on something, and I'm having a hard time figuring out exactly what they're wanting, and how to give that to them effectively without saying, I don't know that that's important. um, Something that I think is pretty simple, but I'm having issues with trying to see what it is they're really asking me for and
Sure.
how I provide that to them when it's something that is kind of minimal, and I don't know that it even needs addressed. If that makes
No,
sense.
totally understandable, because my next question, and honestly, this is kind of asking for my own personal, just to pick your brain on it. Is there can be so much nuance in so much of medicine. Like subtle things make a subtle difference, and that can be a really hard part about providing education, especially to a population that isn't dialed into it like athletic trainers are.
Yeah.
You just even referenced earlier the different, there's kind of five or three different things with that fifth metatarsal fracture that, all lead to very different things. The other one I just thought of that we have a conversation about a lot of times is, ACL grafts, because
Yeah.
obviously, depending on the surgeon, they may have a preference one way or the other for a multitude of reasons. How have you gone about trying to address that? Providing all of the information that you possibly can, but also hedging your bet a little bit, knowing that that may not be exactly
Yeah.
what it is, because that's a hard thing to do while still building trust.
Yeah. So what my goal in that, my approach is going to be to say, hey, look, here's what these things are. And this is in generalities.
Yep.
In general, this is why we do this one. In general, this is why we do this one. In general, this is why we do this one. But knowing that sometimes things can be different. But I think it should also open a door for them to ask their physician or their surgeon, hey, in my instance, why are you doing this over this?
Sure.
Because then they at least have information coming in, and they'll understand down the road, like, oh, now I know why this happens. Like, this brings me back to fracture versus breaks. That was my very first post, because the amount of times I hear, and it's usually from parents, is it fractured or broken? And then I turn and I ask them, well, what's the difference? And they
Sure.
stare, and I'm like, because I don't know the difference. Because to me, there's not a difference. But I
Right.
want to know from them like what they think one is versus the other. And so it's a little bit of that. Like it's a little
Yeah.
bit of this is generally how things are handled, but also knowing that as science progresses, like you referenced with ACLs, as science progresses, things kind of circle back. So whether the procedure's better now, or the material's better now, or the rehab is better now, and figuring out like what's your long-term goal, like how old are you, like what are you going to do, your plan down the road. Like 5 years ago, I would have said if I tore my ACL, absolutely. I'm way too active. I need it replaced. Now my level of activity is different. Do I want to go through an ACL rehab in recovery? I don't know. But my activity is way less than it was then. So I may not need to do it. So I think that those are all the little nuances I want to at least touch on. And so I've had to take posts and break them down smaller instead of like ankle sprain. I had to break it down because so I could touch on some of that thing without somebody realizing that this is a 2,000 word post and I'm not going to read all of it.
Yep. Yeah. Those get hard because you almost need that much in order to get that detail in there. But yeah, you can lose people pretty quickly for
Yeah.
that. Yeah, no, like the surgeon I work with, especially with younger kids, if they're active, yes, we look at like patellar tendon, but if they're thinking of a job in the trades, he may shy away from that and go quad to help reduce some of that anterior knee pain if they're going to be doing a lot of those things. So he's trying to take all of that into consideration, and that can be good to know. Like I would honestly, until I started working with him, wouldn't have thought of that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. And those are the things I just want parents to be aware of.
Yep,
Things
absolutely.
know that may not get translated to them, or they may just go to the appointment and they may say, well, you're going to go into the trades, we're doing this. And they may not hear the other options. And I just want people to be able to understand what's going on to them or their child so that they can advocate and know, and down the road, know what happened and what's going on.
Absolutely. What do you see expanding in the future? You mentioned just educational now, which is plenty in and of itself. Not that there needs to be anything added to that. But what else do you see like next steps? Where are you wanting to see this progress as it continues to grow and gets more following?
Yeah, I would love for the website to become like the go-to resource for parents about the injuries. Somebody gets hurt and they say to their friend, hey, remember, go to your very own athletic trainer and see what she had to say about it. Or oh, let's look and see how we're supposed to manage this, so that people just remember it off the top of their heads.
Sure.
I can't think of like a website that I go to that's like my go-to for everything. But something like that. And whether that progresses to becoming a quote expert and, doing one of those segments on the Today Show or Good Morning America, not that I want to be on TV, but, where they have experts come on and talk about things. I think that's where I would love to see it go. I would love eventually for it to be my full-time job. There's a lot of work that still needs to go into it, and I probably need to outsource some things for that, but that's fine.
Fair enough.
But I to try to think out of the box and take athletic training a place that it hasn't been before, and kind of see what happens with that, and show athletic trainers that you don't have to take a crap pay job and just suck it up, to be an athletic trainer. There's other options for you.
Absolutely. Yeah, I could see just, could you almost like make it a partnership with ATs across, the country as, kind of a go-to resource, and almost have it self-generate just by people being like, hey, we keep seeing this as a trend and would need it to be addressed, and so on and so forth. I could see that being a huge resource.
Yeah, and parents or athletic trainers in the high school, they can send
Yep.
videos to the parents. Hey, look, this is what they need to be doing at home, or for club stuff. Hey, make sure this is how you're taping ankle. Or, I mean, just pulling out whatever. But this is the rehab videos that you should be working on. If you get home and you forget, you can go back to this video and watch what she's saying and doing. So
Yeah. No. Oh, go ahead.
little scary though.
Video has its own unique thing. We can chat offline if maybe we can find some way to help each other out on that stuff. But I also just thought that I had with you mentioned return to play protocols potentially with videos in the future. PRN coverage, going out to and covering something and somebody has something and they're asking you for what feedback and what they can do, because they got whatever coming up, if it's in the summer to be able to have the website or even like a QR code you could pull up for them and be like, hey, check this one out. This will at least help walk you through. I do a ton of that stuff with mobility videos from a guy I really like on YouTube. I'll send those to people because it makes way more sense than me trying to explain it
Yeah.
or, type it out in words or pictures, where they can now just go and reference it and they're short, they're to the point. And so that I could see that being a huge asset.
Yeah, and they have things now where you can like subscription programs. So it could be, I could end up creating something like that and then club teams or a club soccer player, for example,
Yep.
somebody else is covering it. It's like, oh, your hip mobility is just terrible. Here's a program that can help for you. Here's just a link for it, and then they can go and register. So continuing to think out of the box for monetization type purposes.
For sure.
That other other areas are doing, other small businesses are doing, other professions are doing, that I think that athletic trainers need to kind of tap into and see those trends, and not just kind of be stuck in the I have to cover this sport, I have to cover this organization type thing.
So kind of another semi curveball question, but just, you had referenced early on, you had started a business before, obviously you started this one, also mentioning, to ATs that there's other things out there. It doesn't always have to be that job. What advice or any recommendations would you have for someone who's like listening to this and going, you know what, I may want to start up my own thing, like here's a need or whatnot. What would you say to them, just since you've kind of gone through this process a couple times?
I'd say do it. And even if it fails, even if you don't know what you're doing, there's YouTube University. There's lots of people to ask questions, talk to people, network, take advantage of every opportunity that you can. I knew that the situation I was in was very frustrating for me, and I knew that I wanted something different. I was handcuffed with salary, and kind of it was 7 to 6, essentially 4 days a week. And that was in a clinic. That wasn't even, in a Division I setting anymore. And so I was like, that's just not going to work for me. What else can I do? And
Right.
I wanted to be able to, I'm married, but if something happened to my husband, like I want to be able to support myself. I don't want to have to get a part-time job or something else on top of it. And so I wanted to figure out what else can I do? Like what else is out there? And I'm not technically a millennial. I'm older than than that, but I think that the younger people have very good thoughts on diversifying, as far as they take things that they've grown up with and use it in other realms. I see a lot of that on Instagram, and I'm like, wow, why did we never think of this? Why did this take so long for people to come up with? So any idea that you have is a good idea. Even if you think somebody's done it before, you can do it better. You can find the one little niche that they're missing, and you can, kind of jump in on that. Read business books, do all the things, and you'd be surprised at what might happen from it.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate that feedback. It's also good for me to hear as much as anybody else who is listening to that, having tried to start up a couple things and figure out what is and does not work. So
yeah, keep doing it, because you never know, when the next thing is gonna catch. So, and you take a lesson from everything that you've done before.
for sure.
My first website, it took me forever to do it. My new one didn't take me very long, and I think it's 10 times better than my first one was. So I think that if you if you really have the passion for what you want to do with it, it makes it a lot easier to sell yourself on it, to sell the business on it. It's just easier to talk about, and it kind of just becomes you. It doesn't have to consume you, but it just
Right.
becomes you, and it's just natural at that point.
Definitely. Anything we didn't cover about your very own athletic trainer that you would like to touch on? Scrolling through some of the questions, I think we got most of them.
Yeah, the only other thing I can think of is I plan in the future to have like guest posts, guest videos, other experts on things. So if anybody
Absolutely.
has ideas or topics that they're like, you know what, I love this topic, I'm really good at this topic, I want to talk about this, is to let me know and become a part of it. I want this to be it's not just me, it's the profession, it's the website. So if anybody else is like, oh, I want to share this great thing that I have, reach out and we'll talk about what's the word I want, not sharing, working together. I can't
Collaborating.
Yeah, collaborating. Thank you.
Yep.
I was like, communicating. We'll talk about collaborating on it. Because I think that the more people that do it and can share and teach, I mean, people learn different ways and by different people. So that's where I want to go with it, is have as many people involved as I can.
Awesome. I think that sounds great, and it's always fun to connect with people in that way as well.
Yeah,
Ready for the athletic training chat questions?
sure.
All right. First one is, where do you see athletic training going in the next 5 to 10 years?
I definitely see it going that route of the more out of the box thinking. I think that the new young professionals are very tech savvy, and they don't follow the quote "because I said so" mentality, and I love that. I see it stepping into arenas that demand better care for overlooked populations, whether that's inner city, whether that's rural, whether that's club sports, individual sports. And I see it demanding the respect and compensation that it deserves, because I think the market's going to require it. The young professionals aren't going to take I'm not going to get paid crap because you've always paid people crap type
Sure.
things. Those jobs are not going to get filled, which I think sets a standard, sets a precedent for it, which I'm okay with.
Totally agree. I think you see that a lot, with right currently, just being a part of different Facebook groups, alumni groups, and people are out there struggling to find people, and that'll force the change to occur at some point.
Yep.
If you could go back and give yourself some advice as a young athletic trainer, what would it be, and when in your career would you go back to?
I would tell myself that it's okay if your dreams change. It doesn't mean that you failed. The system really isn't built for you to have it all. My dream was to work high level Division I, probably women's basketball. And I got in that system and realized that it was not built for the success of any kind of support staff. It's really all about the coach.
Sure.
And it's not even about the players. It's all about the coach. And it was really hard for me because I knew I was not a member of the staff. I was independent. I was not part of the coaching staff. And so that was one thing that was really difficult. And as the athletic trainer, you're kind of the low man on the totem pole, and they said sorry. But it's okay. It doesn't mean you failed. It's just that system for your expectations is not going to work. Do I hope that changes in the future? Absolutely. Is it that way everywhere? No, but I wasn't going to bounce from school to school to figure it out. So I just moved on, and I'm making something for myself that's different. And when that's successful, then I know that I'm good. So I didn't fail.
No, so much resonates there. And similar thing. Yeah, I thought I wanted to work high level football. Never actually really got there. Ended up at a D3 institution. Had a lot of fun working football there. Good scenario till things changed that weren't going to make it sustainable, and then it was time to go to the next thing. So I feel that one a lot.
Yeah. I think as other athletic trainers, we put in our heads that so much of our worth and value is based on the success of the program at whatever level. And I think that that's crap. That has nothing to do with us necessarily, and how good we are as athletic trainer or as people.
Sure.
So I would love for that to kind of go away. You know, if people could get over that and see that that has nothing to do with how good you are at being an athletic trainer.
I totally agree. You know, not taking away from any athletic trainer that's worked with a highly successful program. Obviously, they've helped figure something out, you know, to make things work. But with some of those programs, you could drop in a lot of different people, and the result's going to be about the same.
Right.
You know, just as much as we do bring that benefit, there's a lot of pieces that could change from other people around the realm because there are so many good that, you know, there's only so much you can do as the AT that's really gonna influence that
Right.
outcome.
Yeah, you don't make play call decisions and that kind of stuff that can change at the end of a game that can make a win or a loss. So
Or recruit or any of that fun stuff.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
What has been the most influential resource that you found in your career?
I would definitely say peers, and people who work in other arenas other than what I'm in. You can start to see trends that are happening across everything. You can ID the pain points in across the whole profession, like hours or like competency and that kind of stuff. And then you can bring in things that have worked in other places and see if that's going to work for you in your setting. So I think that being able to network and use peers has been the biggest influence.
I like it. That's a pretty common one and for good reason. As an AT in your role, how do you take care of yourself?
I try to set realistic boundaries. And I think that that was something that I did not have early on, which led to a lot of frustration for me. And kind of that back to my advice, I'm kind of feeling like I failed. And I have to decide anything that I take on or I go to do, like, what am I giving up? And is it worth that for me? Having weekends or spending time at home in the evenings, like, is it worth giving up to take something else on? Like, I would love to participate in the NCAA tournament again. That it was so much fun, and you can see all these places, and you have you get your little pin, and it's like, but what am I giving up to try to do that? And it's just not worth it anymore. Am I going to pick up covering youth football? Well, I kind of like watching football on Saturdays at home, so I don't know that that's the thing I want to do anymore either. But what does that mean then? That means that I have to work hard to find something that works for me. So being able to set boundaries and really know what I want is probably the biggest way that I take care of myself.
I like that answer. If you could change or eliminate one thing, could be a modality, a common practice, a mindset in the field of athletic training, what would it be?
I would say the mentality that it has to be the way it is because that's the way it's always been. That's one of the things that I hate the most. Most people say the generality don't like change, but I don't know that that's the case. When I was in school, you had 3 routes. You could go to high school, you could go work in a college, or you could get your PhD and teach. And if you didn't do any of those 3 areas, well, then you just left the profession.
Sure.
And especially now, it's like none of those work for me. So there's so many things now that athletic trainers can do. Like, our set of skills is so good that we need to continue to think outside of the box. Like, what else can we do? Like, what other skills do I have? What else do I like to do that I can take my athletic training skills and use it for the betterment of everybody? And I think that we're going to continue to collaborate with experts in other fields, whether it's IT or business or whatever, and continue to come up with ideas that really advance the profession and take care of athletes.
Last question. What does being an athletic trainer mean to you?
Athletic trainer's job is to take care of the athlete. If everything that we do is focused on that, then we can't go wrong. So we're not an assistant coach, we're not a support staff, we're a health professional. We've been trusted to take care of the athlete, help them get back to the game they love, the sport that's paying for school or bringing a salary in for their family. If every decision that we make is based on what is best for the athlete, we can't go wrong. Period.
I can't argue with that one. Very
That's
succinct. I like it.
Every decision that I make, especially in a college setting, was what is best for this athlete. And if it's not best for them, then I have to step in and say, no, is this going to hurt them? No. Well, okay. They may not want to do it, but it's something that they can do, especially in situations with coaches that are tough. That's what I have to think about. In situations with weather, you have to think about situations, with treatments and that kind of stuff. Like, is this what's going to help them? And if not, then it doesn't happen.
Makes sense to me. Anything else that you want to share as we wrap up? And then if there's after anything else, just where people could reach out to you, connect with you, and go from there.
Yeah. I believe that athletic training is truly a calling. It's difficult and it's thankless. School can be demanding. I stepped away from the profession for a while to deal with some health things, but I couldn't ever stop being an athletic trainer. It was so ingrained in my head, everything I saw, every game I watched, every person I watched walking, kind of by. And I think that that's why it's important to continue to expand the profession to areas that are outside of those traditional box of expectations, because you're going to lose people who are good and who can really contribute. And so continuing to expand is going to keep them and help everybody. Traditional settings don't work for me, but I feel like I have a lot to give to the profession and athletes, but also I have to take care of myself, and that goes for any athletic trainer. So I'm not forcing that square peg in that round hole anymore, and I'm just gonna do me and see what happens.
Like it. If people wanted to connect with you, follow you, where's the best places? We'll link it all up in the episode page, but just so we had it.
Yeah, so the website is yourveryownAthleticTrainer.com. It's all spelled out. On Instagram, it is your_very_own_AT. I'm also on LinkedIn as Rachel Deal, and there is a LinkedIn group, I believe, for Your Very Own Athletic Trainer. And then all the contact information can be found on the website on the contact page.
Awesome. And again, we'll link all that up for everybody. So if they want to connect on that, we definitely will have that there. Well, it was great to finally actually get to connect after we had to reschedule a couple of times. Looking forward to potential collaborations in the future. And until then, we'll catch you next time.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Athletic Training Chat. Hope you had a lot from Rachel, some great ideas coming. Can't wait to see what it does in the future. It could really be a nice, solid platform to help continue to promote the athletic training profession. I want to thank again our sponsor, Mueller Sports Medicine, for everything they do for us and also for athletic trainers in general. Thank you to them. If you haven't checked it out yet, we have the Athletic Training Daily Journal out. If you've been curious about journaling, want something tailored a little bit more to the profession, check it out. You can go to clinicallypressed.org/shop. You can find a downloadable 14-day trial, 0 payment info required, but you can kind of see what it's about, and then either get the PDF version right there or find the book on Amazon. But thank you again for listening, and we will catch you next episode.